scream out, no. When the real way, I mean, yes, yes! And this is why we have the safe word. Until we hear the safe word, we will not stop. She's not a Christian!
Safe word with Jason Rouse.
Hello.
Oh, just me. Hello to me.
Can you hear yourself?
I can.
This is like that the string with the soup can on it.
Right. Well,
So-
I'm wearing the headphones, and you're not.
That's fine though.
Uh-huh.
But I sound all right. Do I?
And you want to make sure that I'm not screaming into the mic. You're like, I'll control Stout by just putting him...
It's the same as like stand-up comedy, except that we have no audience, which is kind of like doing stand-up in Los Angeles.
Oh, I thought you were saying it's the same, like, if I could see myself on stage, maybe I'd make some adjustments.
Some self-reflection. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me into your home. You're one of few people who've taken that risk.
I mean, I had some reservations in my mind that I had to get over, but I was like, oh, it'll be fine.
No, Jason will be fine. I've got a number in case of emergency to call his family. Mm-hmm. But I am here with Ryan Stout.
Hooray.
Yes. And how we met in South Africa.
Yeah, Johannesburg.
What an odd place to make a connection in stand-up comedy.
It's one of my favorites, actually, because I went to that festival and I really didn't know you. Eliza Schlesinger and I had never really hung out. We ended up at dinner after the first show, and I'm sitting next to Bobby Lee, who I've never spoken with in my life, and I thought he was just some maniac that ran around on stage. And
you were right.
We fell into like kind of a deep conversation pretty quickly, and I was like, oh, Bobby's like a deep feeling,
yes,
intellectual type person. How interesting.
It was neutral ground.
Yeah.
As performers, it was so detached from anything that we'd have. It's not like somebody we've been going there regularly, with the exception of me. I've been there maybe 6 times leading up to that. So I was familiar with it, but I've never worked with very many American acts ever at that point. You know, most of the stuff was in Europe and in Canada, and I hadn't knew anything about anybody. So it was interesting, but we had a great time. It was
well,
really cool.
I mean, and those audiences are so stupid. They, well, because it was a new comedy scene at the time, so the audience hadn't been jaded by anything yet. They were just eating everything up. So it's, I think the environment to be around comedians who you wouldn't normally connect with is different when everyone's killing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like when somebody's struggling, you're kind of like, ew, I don't think he's that funny either. I feel like the crowd's kind of right.
It was just like a perfect storm.
Yeah.
You got a great venue, you're staying in a nice hotel, you know, all that stuff. And it just, if you're being an asshole, you're just an asshole. There's no way around it. How can you have a bad time in paradise doing what you love? So... But that, have you been back since? No,
I mean, I think somebody else took over the bookings, and then all of a sudden the money is like 25% of what it was, and
I've been screwed on that deal so many times.
Well, when I met you, you were like, I agreed to do this, but I did it under the guise that they would pay me this time.
Yes. Yeah, I had to, on 2 different occasions. It took me 3 to almost 6 months of steady, regularly like 3 or 4 phone calls a week for months to get my my money. So I made it clear to them that I wouldn't go on stage until I was handed a cash.
But yeah.
And which kind of fucked me too, because then when I did the exchange with the rand back to the Canadian dollar, it was fucking. It was like a bag of oranges by the end of it. It was a really pain in the ass.
Yeah, I showed up in comics who had done it before. They were like, "Did you get paid in advance?" I was like, they just, they sent over a check, so I already got paid in full. And they went, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is my first time. I just assume that things are fine.
It's such a shitty thing in a perfect storm, you know, with it was great. How many, because you stayed a little longer. I think I was only there for 2 weeks.
I was only there for the 1 week, because somebody dropped out. And I was like a last-minute fill-in.
Oh,
and so I flew all the way to South Africa for 6 shows. And then flew back.
That's fucked. Yeah, it's something like trips like that when you're on a plane for any more than 12 hours. I want to be there for at least 2 to 3 weeks minimum.
Yeah.
Minimum. Especially if it's a tropical paradise, But we went to, what was it, the Nelson Mandela? No, Apartheid Museum?
We went to the Apartheid Museum, and then you and I stood outside the Nelson Mandela house while everybody else went in, because you and I were like, come on, it's just his house.
Yeah,
What are you
yeah.
What are you gonna figure out in there? That's his favorite rocking chair?
Yeah. Somebody knocked on the floorboards. Oh, it's Hitler.
Yeah.
He's
Nothing's in there for us.
No.
So we hung out outside and watched young children scam people for money.
Yeah, it was fucked up. It was fucked up. But the museum, the Apartheid Museum, that was pretty humbling. Especially when the entrance is black on one side and white on the other side.
Yeah, I always thought it was interesting. Like when people buy their ticket, you randomly get assigned white or colored.
Yeah.
And I always tell people that I got white, so I went in and there was a buffet, and then a foot rub, and I thought it was nice.
I got a black one, and they just whipped me and took my land away from me.
Yeah. I had a whole different experience.
Just gotta pull the right ticket, I guess, right? What else happened when we were there? I'm trying to have a little flashback here as far as what we did.
Last night, you and I went to a strip club, and we hopped in the car with some stranger who was like, yeah, I'm going to take care of you guys. I work at the club. Do you remember that? And
No.
we're taking off to the club, and he immediately gets pulled over at like a checkpoint stop.
Did we? Was I fucked up before we went to the strip club?
I think you were a little fucked up, and I think you had drugs on you.
Okay. All right. In South Africa. Yeah, not a lot of foresight there. Like a good shot through the window by a pedestrian.
We didn't get, 500 yards from the hotel we were staying at, and we had been pulled over, and the police are going to search our car. And I don't know who this driver was, but he just said something to the cops. I think he might have paid him, and then we were on our way.
I think that's what might have been the case.
Yeah.
But did we make it to the strip club?
We made it to the strip club.
I don't remember any of this shit. I remember something, us going somewhere, but what strip club? What was the name of it?
Christ,
in Johannesburg.
I don't know. I just remember that the guy we were with was taking care of us completely. So we
was
got
it a friend
there.
of mine or a promoter? Yeah, probably a little. Because again, I meet up with some shady people, and I keep in contact with them.
Yeah.
But and then they take us to strange places, and but it's always fine. There might be a road check or two.
Yeah.
Some bullets.
Well, they fed us. They brought out all this food at the strip club.
What?
And then they cleared the table, and then there was a girl dancing on our table. And then
They fed us?
Yeah.
And then they brought out the whores.
Yeah. And like
This is Game of Thrones.
these lap dances were intense in that, she's on the table, but, she's doing the thing where she puts her heels over your shoulders and then just grinds her pussy in your face.
Yeah. You get a big pile of Parmesan cheese in your lap
Yeah,
by the
and
end of it.
you're still wiping the corners of your mouth because you're like, I just had chicken.
Yeah. And I'm in Africa and some girl's grinding her hole against me. I'm going to pick up a parting gift before I leave here.
So I do remember at one point you pulled a powdery substance, we'll say, out of your pocket.
Okay.
And you started to put some on the table, and the guy we were with tapped your arm and went, "You can't, not here.
You can't
do that here."
Blow on a table in a public setting?
And then you went, "Stout, I'm buying you a lap dance." And then you sent me to the back room with this girl. You're like, "It's already paid for. Just go." So I get back there, and
I remember that.
And then I was in there for like 10 minutes, and she's giving the lap dance, and then all the lights go out. Like, I think, oh, this is the part where I get jacked.
Oh,
completely.
Rouster. He's going to have me beheaded by a prostitute.
And I was like, what's happening? And she said something like, oh, that happens all the time. And I was like, oh, okay. And then the lights came back on, and she said, yeah, we're all done. And then I tipped her, and then I kind of scurried back out to the table, like, did the lights go out here? And you guys were like, yeah, it was weird. But they came back.
Yeah, it's...
but I was like, I was in a small room where the lights went out.
A lot of room for error.
Yeah.
It's... I do want to go back. I want to do Australia and New Zealand. That's two places I've had on a list.
Oh, you haven't done either?
No.
I did the Comedy Store in Sydney for 2 weeks.
Oh, great. How was it?
A couple years ago. Actually, it was the same year. I went to Johannesburg, flew back, and then like a month later flew to Sydney, which, if anybody knows geography, that's a shorter plane ride from South Africa to Sydney.
Yeah.
But It was a great time. What I love is showing up in different parts of the world, and the way they just kind of format the show is different.
Yes.
You know, in the UK, you have intermissions.
Yeah, there's breaks so people can. But the cool part about that too is you don't got waitresses. Oh, and I forgot about that. I'm glad you brought it up. You don't have waitresses fumbling around with change in front of the stage while you're trying to maintain attention with an audience. You know what I mean? It's just it's like having a canary fly around the room when you're trying to get focus from an audience.
I was at a club recently, and you know, it's a major chain in America, but for whatever reason, this one franchise, like, they screw up check drops so bad. And maybe they're great at it, maybe they're awful at it, but you know, certain clubs try to time it out so a third of the room gets their check, and then maybe another third, and then the final third, so that you still have 2/3 of the audience paying attention. This place managed to just drop every check at once, and it was like everybody's head just went down for about 3-4 minutes.
And then you spend the whole 90 minutes of the performance, people or let's say 80 minutes of the performance, and then the last 10 minutes is just such a disrespect to the whole show.
Right.
It's just like, you know what? That's great, you and your little arty shit, but we got some bills to pay here. But could you just stand up there so we know that we still own you?
Listen, we're not really paying attention. If you could just do some puns, some children's humor, just something easy for us to digest while we do math.
Oh, it's so
and then once we're back, you work on our schedule and then go back to your show.
And no matter how diplomatic the staff is, it's like, oh, here's your bill. John, what did you get? You know, what?
How many beers
did
you drink?
I didn't get
3 or 4?
Nachos? Oh, it turns into a mess. But I tried to do that with some shows that I'd produced in Canada, some stand-up events and stuff. I go, you know what, we're going to do a break in the middle. Mm-hmm. Well, did a break? 3/4 of the audience went home.
They don't understand a break.
They couldn't understand it. They were like, the show's over. And I tell them, I go, we're going to take a 15-minute break so you guys can go up and get some more booze, and then we'll move forward with the show. Well, they just go, well, I don't know if I want to sit down again. You know, I got my beer, it's finished. Oh, Hummingbird just went by.
Yeah, I loved that in Scotland especially.
The Stand.
Fantastic. Because they would do their first break, because they would do 2 breaks. Their first break, people would go to the bar and check their phone and take a piss. And then second break, anybody who was problematic, they came over and told them, like, listen, you're a little too intoxicated, so we can't serve you anymore. And those people go, well, if you're not going to serve us, we're going to leave. And they go, well, that's your choice.
Yeah.
And then they willingly, all the problem people get up and willingly walk out the door, and then the headliner takes the stage, and everybody who's there is still focused and willing to enjoy the show, and there's no heckling, nobody's looking at their phone because they've done that twice already.
They're legitimately invested in their good time.
Yeah.
They're 110% committed to the performance.
Yeah.
Militantly, like, where if somebody's being disruptive in within earshot, someone's, hey, you know, me and my wife, this is all we got going on this week, so shut the fuck up, because we've got a lot.
This is the only time we can afford a babysitter.
Yeah,
we can't do any other night.
We're broke, and we've got a beer in our hand that we can't really even afford. But this is our escapism from our Scottish hell.
Yeah,
you know. I love it there. And I find that the more depressing and grim, I think actually Stanhope had brought that to attention, where the more apocalyptic the environment is and more struggle that people have on a daily basis, the more appreciative they are of stand-up. And that's why California, sunny and hot every day, no one gives a fuck.
You go out to Orange County, those people, they feel very entitled that you're supposed to give them what they want. They didn't come to your show. You came to them.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, my name's on the building. God damn it. It says my name. You bought a ticket with my name on it.
Yeah, and they kind of, as you walk on the stage, they kind of roll your eyes like, oh, what's he going to try and do?
Yeah. Every time I've been in Irvine, somebody has heckled at some point during the show, apropos of nothing, it's Irvine!
Yeah, like it's a disability.
Thank you, ma'am. That's nice. And what they don't realize is, I don't. That's the place I've gotten it the most, but I get that everywhere. I'll be in this one woman a few weeks ago was like, "It's Minneapolis." I was like, "Yeah, ma'am. I've I know where I am. I've
seen a
performed
globe?
here before. I bought the plane ticket here. What does that mean, though? What are you telling me when you announce the location? And she says, well, I'm from New York. And I was like, well, you see all these nice Minneapolis people not yelling at the stage? I kind of like them for that. That's why I came here.
Is it dead? Is it dying?
But people will be like, it's Baltimore! And I'm on stage. I don't even know what you're communicating to me.
There's no foresight. There's nothing, there's no end game. It's like, I'm jealous of your attention. Those are just idiots.
I had somebody yell out, they said we're not allowed to yell out.
Perfect.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And what did you take from that?
What's been your worst experiences with audiences? Like, we all have them, and there's more than a dozen. But one where you're just like, no matter what you did as far as damage control, it still ended up in the shitter.
I think I'm always interested in the idea that attention spans are getting shorter because of the internet and everything else. But you're talking about the length of the show and no breaks. A lot of times I feel like if the MC does really well and then the middle act does really well, these people just had 45 minutes of comedy.
Their fill.
You know, an episode of hour-long television is 44 minutes of entertainment with breaks. So they just had more than that, and now they're like, oh, we're good. And then it's like, are you ready for the main event? And they're like, no, we're already set.
Unless
We already
you're
had
famous.
our comedy thing.
That's why the clubs build a lot of their shows around celebrity.
Yeah.
Not necessarily quality, it's all excitement. So even the time they see two great comedians, and then the headliner comes on, so they've already got an investment in it because they want to see somebody famous or somebody they've seen on television. But it could be a guy who moonlights as a stand-up comedian, but he's got a hit sitcom, and then comes into that, and it just it's anticlimactic.
It's a level of expectation that I would like from the crowd that they're not giving. One of my favorite jokes when I was a kid was, and of course I didn't write this, was just I heard it as a kid, and I was like, I love that. But you know that extra little skin on your elbow when you straighten your arm, and you just kind of roll it between your forefinger and your thumb, that extra skin?
Okay.
And I ask people to do that, or you would do that as a kid, and then you go, that's what my nutsack feels like. But it's only funny if they do it. It's only funny if you say, hey, feel that skin on your elbow, and then they play along. If they sit there with their arms folded staring at you while you talk, it's like, well, now it's not fun anymore because you're not engaging.
Yeah.
I'm actually asking you to laugh and clap and think, and you don't want to because you're busy eating chicken wings. You need to. This is a two-person thing.
Yeah, they're. It's really weird that they think that by engaging them or trying to bring them together as a collective, that you're threatening. I think they're just weak individuals, personalities.
Right.
And then you get the lady. This is so and so. You know, it's just they can't. They're social retards, and they probably have that all through most of their life. I would assume.
Well, starting where I started in San Francisco, I always felt like there was a vibe in the room sometimes that the individual tables were saying like, well, I'm here with my friends, and I know what we think about comedy.
It's tribal.
But we're not going to be part of this larger group. And it's like, well, I'm not going to play to 40 individual tables. I want to play to, 120 people.
But the person who's taken that stand is like, I'm with this group. They don't share the same disposition as the person who's decided to be the spokesperson for the group.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, fuck, John's at our table again. And
yeah.
Now we got to deal with him. Yeah, but me and my friends. No, if we had to measure you, had to screen all these people at your table, they go, I don't even like the guy. He's a friend of my fucking sister's-in-law, and he always pulls his fucking shit. I thought you were great. I'm sorry my asshole, by association fucking friend, ruined the show. It's just it's such a
that's the weird thing too. Some people have it in their mind that when they go to the comedy show, it is an opportunity for them to be funny.
Sure.
They're like, it's a comedy club. It's a club, so we're all funny, right? And it's like, no.
Yeah.
It is just because you go to a nightclub doesn't mean you're the best dancer. People are allowed to dance, sure, but I was doing a show, and I did something about, it was a bit that you've seen me do, about the International Special Olympics.
I've never seen you perform before. But you do comedy.
We did those 6 shows in Johannesburg, but you were busy backstage.
Sorry, go on.
You're a comedian.
Yeah.
I thought you were a visual artist.
I was smoozing you to do my taxes.
We got this nice table here. Let's break up the numbers. I was doing this bit about the International Special Olympics, and the guise of the bit is basically we need to support the International Special Olympics, show some pride for our countries and support these goofy athletes, because when they drag their gorilla knuckles across that finish line, and it turns into this thing where my argument of this positive argument has all this negative language.
Yes.
And there's a collision.
Yeah.
There's an incongruity there where it's like people don't know quite what to think. Like, oh, he's saying good things, but meanwhile, the forest from the trees is not quite clear.
And that, in some cases, is all somebody idiot in the audience needs. They hear a word, even if you said, retarded doctors.
Yeah.
They would go, retarded.
Really? You're going to use that kind of language?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not nice. They're people just like us. So anyway, I'm doing this bit, and people are loving it. But then this one dude, he's kind of been chatty all night. You could tell he's drunk, but he's probably about 6'5", 300 pounds. Just white dude who...
Big farm boy.
Looks like he's got, just meat for hands.
Yeah.
He just stands up and he goes, "That's not funny! I'm retarded!" And then he, stomps out of the building. But he thinks...
Come back, Mongo, I was kidding.
He thinks he's being funny. Meanwhile, the rest of the audience is like, oh, that guy really had his feelings hurt. Oh, so now the vibe of the room has completely changed, and he's not even there anymore for me to talk to him. No. Meanwhile, he's trying to get back into the club, and the bouncers are like, "No, you can't go back in.
You just took a big shit on the floor at a family dinner."
And he's like, "Come on, it was funny. It was a joke. I was just joking." He was joking about the Special Olympics, so I made a joke. And they're like, "What are you talking about? Nobody's paying you to do jokes." Yeah. And so then the rest of the show, for the other 15 minutes I was on the stage, is just a lot of people genuinely sitting there going, "Oh, the comedian did that really offensive thing."
That's all they're holding in their head, no matter what you're saying to
them.
And
they leave not knowing the conversation this dude had with the bouncer. And now, these days, people go home and write it on their blog. "Oh, Ryan Stout offended a mentally handicapped person."
Yeah.
I was there. I saw it happen. Yeah. And then somebody else jumps onto that going, "These comedians, they need to know better." And it's like, you don't even know the story.
Yeah, and what do you think about all that, where people think they have taken license into making, these YouTube comments and these blogs and things? It's kind of tainted and really fucked with this whole politically correctness it's disemboweling the whole stand-up.
Yeah.
With this people that have taken this moral high ground and completely out of context, and then the news sees it and doesn't do any research, and then builds a sensational story all around it.
Well, the news, there's so many news outlets that they just need to fill time with something.
That's a pretty loose news.
No, it's
public information.
It truly is a real thing, though, because you'll watch CNN and they're like, comedian says awful thing and goes on tirade, and you're like, wait a second, this isn't a story. There's no evidence to support this story.
No.
One girl went home and wrote on her blog an event, word for word, somehow, that she only experienced once. Somehow she can repeat the comedian's joke word for word that she heard one time while her adrenaline's going and she's in a fight. No, she's reporting what she remembers, which is different.
You must get... Because you're pretty, very clever, blue comedian.
I would argue definitely contextually. I'd much rather perform to an audience who's like, we're here to see something dirty, than an audience who's like, we're here to see something clean.
You're a nightclub performer,
right?
In a bar full of adults, talking about adult subject matter, but you're also you dress nice and you're clean cut. Does you find that gives you a lot of license for people to kind of come approach you to give them their 2 cents about what you're doing and what you said? And this is because you cover a lot of taboo subject matter, and, very cleverly.
Yeah,
and some people can be put off by that, by your how clever it is,
right?
And even the language, that struggle between morality and the lack that people are laughing their fucking asses off.
Yeah. Well, there are a few
conflict.
points during my set where I will actually like explain the joke to them to kind of subvert.
Yeah, I saw
what,
that at
what
Laugh
you're
Factory.
talking about. Like I had this bit off my album that
You want to plug your album? When did it
it's
come
called
out?
Touche. It was released like 3 years ago.
Okay. So you can get the torrent off a pirate.
Yeah,
Bay?
you can watch it at some place for free, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I really need the money, everybody. But there was this bit on there about fitness motivated rape. And it was it
Like
had
a running class.
It was, well, yeah, a lot of like, if sex is great exercise, then rape, obviously, you know, you have to find a target, you got to chase them down, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's going to get the cardio.
It's a craft.
You're working the bis, the tris, the pecs, the quads. But I tried to include as much language as possible that involved exercise. Like that was a craft choice. And then I was very specific to make the bit non-gender specific. Like I
Yeah.
made those choices very specifically.
Yeah.
So that the bit would be about making fun of the fad diets that are out there.
Yes.
And just because a diet works doesn't mean it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do the bit and some people are laughing, some people are upset, and then I will explain to the crowd that was a bit about dieting. And I will tell them why, and the people that liked it will laugh, and other people will sit there and go, okay, maybe I shouldn't have been so upset. But some people will get even more upset.
Sure, and add alcohol to somebody that's already got a weak
Sure.
disposition in general.
But once I do that a few times with a few different bits, like that wasn't a bit about the N-word, that was a bit about phonics.
Yeah.
You know, it makes people very wary about approaching me after the show because they're like,
Yeah.
maybe the bit wasn't about what I thought it was about, which is what I really want out of every audience member always. I want them to treat comedy the way they treat poetry. Mm-hmm. Everybody treats poetry with this grand idea that, well, maybe I didn't understand it, but clearly the poet knows what he's doing.
That's a good analogy. Poetry and comedy, it's all subjective art. You
Right.
know, and it's all a matter of perspective and
Well, I mean, people don't go to the museum and claim that some sort of piece should be taken down. I don't like this piece of art because it's about rape.
Yeah.
You're like, well, yeah, but we've got it in the museum because it's
brilliant.
It's a perfect composition. The materials used, the brush strokes, the style of the painting. There's all sorts of craft elements in the painting that make it great. Now, you don't understand the craft elements. You just understand the subject matter.
yeah.
And that's not enough for you to make your argument. So I'm always arguing that, oh, no, you don't like that topic, but you don't know anything about the joke.
Yes, it's so fucked. It's people getting stupid. It seems like as progressive as we have with this information age, that people are only they're not looking the subject matter in its entirety.
Yeah.
They're hooking onto something and then making that their protest. You know what I mean? Like all these anyway.
Well, I do get emails via the internet from people
Complaints?
complaints, but interestingly enough,
That's awesome.
Either
I wish.
Either from 14-year-old girls who saw me on Comedy Central
Sure.
and they're going to prove their adulthood by telling me that I'm not funny and that what I said was mean, or strangely enough, I've gotten a fair amount of complaints from college professors who are like, well, I teach, Asian American studies at UCLA, and I saw this thing that you did about a Chinese fire drill, and, that's derogatory. And I wrote, well, first of all, that wasn't a real news story. That was a joke. And they're like, yeah, but the phrase Chinese fire drill is derogatory. And I'm like, yeah, and I didn't use that phrase. I implied that phrase in a fictional context.
Yeah, you filled in the blank with your own ignorance.
And they're like, I said, so what is the problem now? You didn't like the joke initially because I was making fun of some terrible event in China. Mm-hmm. And now you don't like the joke because it involves a derogatory phrase, but I didn't use the phrase. So now what's the new complaint?
Yeah,
I said, why are you looking for reasons to tear the joke down rather than reasons why it's funny?
Yeah, and then you just respond with, I guess it bothers you that I've made my dream come to light.
Yeah.
And you're a fucking professor.
What do you think about all the people laughing at the joke? What do you think of them? I asked this one guy, I said, if there's a comedian and he does a joke, why was 6 afraid of 7? Because 7, 8, 9. What happens when somebody writes that comedian an email and goes, really, cannibalism? That's what you're going to joke about? You think that's okay in our society? And I said, what do we tell that guy? And he went, well, that's not a fair comparison. Like, you were making fun of this terrible thing, and that's just like implied cannibalism. I'm like, no. That's actually what's happening in that joke. So what do we tell that guy? What do we say? And he was like, I don't know. But I just think what you're talking about is mean. I'm like, okay.
Well, prove your point.
Yeah.
Because do people just email you directly through your website? Because I'm in awe of what you've just explained, because I've had one direct message in 18 plus years of doing stand-up.
Wow.
One, and then I think my first year of stand-up, I got actually used it in my press kit, a letter from a religious group explaining to me that I was a part of the problem of the planet.
Which problem?
Yeah, exactly.
Which problem exactly?
Oh, man. I still have it. I think it's on my website or something. Anyway.
I find it amazing. Like, I will get on stage and joke about, third world kids and, people, burn victims and whatever else. And there will be audiences of people laughing and loving it. I was doing a show. It was, I think, in Sacramento, multiracial crowd. And then I got to this thing about Jesus being aborted. And this, every single black person in the crowd just folded their arms. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'll laugh hysterically at the Special Olympics. I will laugh at third world kids, but once you bring Jesus in, we're
and
not.
They're hypocrites. When was the last time you were at fucking church? You know what I mean? They're like the audience will take this moral high ground.
Yeah.
When they're hypocrites.
Well, what was funny in that show, it just happened to be all the black people who just bailed on me. But I was in someplace else, and I heard this like cowboy dude just look at his wife and go, "Grab your coat, we're leaving."
Yeah.
And I was like, this was years ago. I wasn't.
Oh, you're going to get into heaven now.
I wasn't even the headliner. I was like, you're going to leave before the headliner?
Yeah.
He's going to be doing something different. You might enjoy it. No, we're leaving now. Okay.
It's cut the cord. Let's get out. But then they think, and then they'll make draw attention to them leaving.
Yeah.
Like, you probably should come with us. We're doing the right thing. And if you stay here and listen to this, then you're a bad person. You know, they kind of send that vibe out. I set up the show immediately, so they're too afraid to even take a piss. They are crippled with fear.
Yeah.
And I've had people go, "Oh, that was awesome," but I wanted to take a piss for the last half hour, and I couldn't because I knew you tear a strip off me, and they were right to say that. I want to make it in I want them to be imprisoned.
There's a domination aspect.
Yeah, it's very much me against them.
Well, I think that's both of our leadership styles. Is like, we're in charge now. You sit down and fucking pay attention.
Yeah. Keep your hands in
and
your mouth shut, and we can have a great time here. You can all go have showers afterwards and pretend you're clean and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Now a word from our sponsors.
Hiya, Mr. Flintstone.
Greetings, Rocky, my boy. Pack of Winstons, please.
Oh, you like them Winston cigarettes, huh, Mr. Flintstone?
But of course, they really got something.
You bet your life. Folks who really enjoy smoking know it's what's up front that counts. And that's where Winston steps out ahead of the crowd with their exclusive filter blend. Choice golden tobaccos, specially selected and specially processed for filter smoke.
Hold it.
You know what you mean?
What are you pitching Winstons at me for? You know I never smoke nothing else.
Just practicing, Mr. Flintstone. Everybody knows that.
Winston tastes good, like cigarette should.
Yeah.
See you soon, Rocky. Visit JasonRouse.com.
But you started in San Francisco, which is a pretty liberal place.
Yeah, it forced me to develop a style of comedy that, I've been talking about, where I'm doing this terrible thing about the N-word, but the backdoor meaning is that's about phonics. Or this terrible thing about rape, but the backdoor meaning is that was a joke about dieting, and you can't argue otherwise. Because I needed that as a defense mechanism from all of the overt liberals who wanted to find the victim in the joke, identify with the victim, and make that their argument. And when they would, I would smile at them and go, yeah, no, that's correct, and that's why I had this other element in there. And then they go, oh, well, yeah, I guess, but, if people don't pick up on that, then they're going to be offended. I'm like, well, I can't control what they do and don't pick up on.
Dummies.
Yeah, that's not my thing.
You want me to stoop it up? Do I have to do my entire act with a PowerPoint presentation and puppets.
Yeah.
Is now, because like I get like I've been to San Francisco once, but I started my career in Vancouver.
Right. And I was going to bring up Vancouver because I feel like they're very aligned.
Yeah, but almost in Vancouver can be overly sensitive.
Oh,
They're like got their protest signs and a marker ready, going, "What's he gonna say?" Like there was an incident. Did you hear about that comedian
Guy Earl
with the lesbians?
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
I heard there was some sort of limited amount of a physical he smashed some glasses or something. I don't know, but he had to pay a fine.
Yeah, and he took it to the Canadian Supreme Court, and he was like, "Look, you can't fine me for hurting her feelings. I was just talking."
How did it make it that far?
How
what the fuck?
I don't know how she was able to prove that that he was responsible for her subsequent, nightmares and anxiety and all these other things. But somehow his words on stage, and apparently, and I don't know exactly what happened, but apparently a lot of this escalated into the parking lot with people yelling at each other. Well, people are allowed to yell at each other in a parking lot. That's
sticks and stones.
That's not against the law. And because he was being, quote unquote, paid by the venue because they were giving him free drinks, the venue had to pay a fine.
No.
Yeah. So now you've brought it to the business where they're like, well, we don't want to have a comedy show if people get into a disagreement over funny and all of a sudden somebody has to pay fines. But apparently, from my understanding, and I could be wrong on this, at his trial, the comedian was like, no, I don't have to testify about what I said and didn't say. I should be allowed to say whatever I want under the guise that I'm on stage saying into a microphone with the intent of making people laugh.
Yeah, it's like burning down an ice cream truck because you're lactose.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, well, we all like ice cream and there's a whole bunch of different flavors. Yeah, well, I'm allergic to dairy.
Sure.
So we set the truck on fire. Well, no one gets ice cream.
The thing with courts, in the United States anyway, is if you have somebody testifying, well, Jason Rouse said X, Y, and Z, and you sit there and go, I don't have to tell you what I said. Well, now you've got a group of people who only have one side of the story, and you had your chance to explain your side, and you didn't. So they're like, well, we have to believe the prosecution then. They're almost forced into that position where they're like, well, that sounds awful, and that must be what happened.
Do we have to videotape or audio tape all our sets now?
I do a lot of them. Yeah, I almost do all of them because
of legal repercussions.
Well,
he said, she said, cuts it right out. So I love it because I've had because I'll tape it on my phone and you did this and this, and I go, you know what? I got the show on fucking tape. And the only thing that's revealed on here is how much of an idiot you are.
Right.
So this is documented here. Sure. So you can manipulate the words on whatever you want, but this is what fucking happened. Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate. It's really. I
was doing a show at a club.
Is that a bronze T-Rex?
That's a T-Rex. That's a bronze Buddha.
Okay, the T-Rex looks like it's bronze too. You got some interesting. You got a cow, a Buddha, and a T-Rex. And
you should see the little box stuff up there.
Unicorn?
It's a unicorn, and it's impaling a mime.
Oh, that's great.
And it's like a children's toy. It's just a little box.
That's great. See,
I don't know why
find that offensive.
Right.
My brother was raped by a unicorn.
Was he?
Yeah, well, it's...
Your Honor! Yeah. If somebody's not willing to testify that he wasn't raped by a unicorn, it must be fact.
It went through his chest, not in his ass. It was a murder. I raped him.
I did a show where afterward a woman was like, I didn't like that one comedian. He talked about suicide the whole time, and he said that he was going to string up a midget and cut it open, and then candy was going to fall out.
Piñata.
And
hilarious visual.
And actually the words I used were piñata. But that's not the word she heard. She heard strung up, cut open, midget, all words that I don't use. And when she explained the image in her head,
theater of the mind, she's the sicko.
Right, to the club owner, he was like, he went to the manager, he was like, look, I don't know what Ryan said, but he really upset some people, and whatever bit he was doing like that, he really needs to stop. And the manager came to me and he was like, Ryan, do you do a bit about this? And I went, Kind of, but no. None of those words are mine. I said, you know what? You tape every show. Why don't you watch the tape? See who's laughing, who's not laughing, and then tell me. And the manager looked at me and just went, no, you're fine. Just keep doing the thing.
Yeah, that's a
like
great
the tape
equalizer.
is always an amazing
Yeah.
thing to be like, look, if you have a problem, watch the tape and get back to me. But don't take her word for it. Any comedy owner that's willing to take the audience's word for it, I think you're dead. You're dead in the water as a venue, because people make shit up. There was a woman in St. Louis who came up to me. She was like, I cannot believe I paid extra money to sit in the front row, and you just made fun of me for being fat the whole time. And I said, excuse me? She said, yeah. I said, ma'am, I didn't make fun of your weight. What? Like, you've seen my show, Jason. You know that I talk about stuff on stage. I don't pick on audience members.
No.
And I said, ma'am, I didn't say anything about your weight. She said, yes, you did. Yes, you did. I said, ma'am, I taped the show. It's the same show that I did for yesterday and the night
For
before
the rest
that.
of the fat people in the fucking front, you pig.
Yeah. And she said, no, you made fun of me the whole time. I said, well, that's the manager. Talk to him. And she goes over. She was like, he was making fun of me. And the manager went,
shut up, fatso.
You're drunk. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so this club is going to be around for a long time.
That's cool.
Because
especially when you get some people, club owners. And you know what some of the worst club owners are the ones that used to be comics.
Yeah.
And now they've taken in this kind of elitism stance in their business. And now not only I'm the key master here, and now we're going to do it like this, this, and this. And if you don't follow into that, opposed to some guy who used to manage rock and roll bands in the 70s and 80s and just is a total comedy nerd and just goes, you know what, it's so great to have you here. You can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
Just don't get your dick out. Okay, I'm talking about somebody talking to me. Just don't get your dick out on stage, and we're going to have a great time. I'm so excited. This is the staff, the bouncers shaking hands. It's more of a collective. It's a group effort.
Right.
Opposed to like, fuck it, comics are here. Don't. And I've had it where the staff won't talk or interact with you, or it's kind of minimal. They've been read the riot act. Don't. The wait staff, don't take the comedians home. Don't socialize with them after.
Sure.
Even though you've been playing the club for 6 or 7 years or something like that.
We run a business here, and you're not supposed to. Well, I mean, my first week in comedy, first week ever getting paid, I showed up at the club that I'd been to a ton of times, and there are signs everywhere. This is in El Paso, Texas. And there's signs, wait staff meeting, wait staff meeting, wait staff meeting. And I was like, I've never seen that before. It's like Tuesday night. So I pull over a server that I've been friendly with. I'm like, what's that about? And she said, well, one of the servers is pregnant, and she doesn't know if it's the headliner from 6 weeks ago or the feature act from the week before that.
That's none of the club's business.
Well, what was funny to me was like, oh, this is what happens, though, when you leave town, that you're still being talked about, and sometimes not always in a positive light.
Sure.
So that is going to probably affect your rebooking.
Yeah. Don't shit what you eat.
Right.
And wear a condom, I guess, is the rule of thumb. I don't know what year.
Well, I mean, the worst part for me was I was like, ugh, I wouldn't want to be, if I was the headliner, I wouldn't want to be with some girl who nailed the feature act the week before. Doesn't she have any standards?
Oh, there is some of those hogs that you'll get in the club with just girls that just tend, and I'm not calling them hogs. They're free spirits. I don't want to be part of the problem. They've brought many a joy to lonely alcoholics on the road. You know what I mean? So, but the staff can be cool and accommodating on
they
many
can be
levels.
great.
And sometimes they get pregnant.
Well, I went out, my first few tours out on the road doing comedy clubs, I would always think, I have to go drink with the wait staff because then I want them to speak well of me and have me back.
Sure.
And then I'd be back a year later, whole different new wait staff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now I got to go drink with these assholes? I'm getting too old for this.
Yeah.
I can't just be pounding shots with these kids all night long.
I can.
I mean, I did for a good 10 years, and then I just got to the place where I'm like, I'm going to drink with the other comics in the green room, and we'll bullshit around.
It is definitely, it's a hard thing to do, and I've staggered it more if I've gone along to separate the business from the party. You know what I mean? And you get caught up in the euphoria and excitement of being a live entertainer and people going. But if you don't put the work in, the party is not helping anything.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys, and I'm guilty of it in various stages of my career, but it's a lazy thing to do. And pick your battles. But getting hammered, see the Stout. Oh, come out, drink with us. I go, you don't understand. This is every weekend for me.
Yeah, this is almost every night.
You know,
I don't need to be doing this every night.
Oh, come on, pussy, have a shot. I go, no, I got to get a flight in the morning.
Yeah.
Or worse, you know. I got to deal with myself, and having a hangover, it's hard to keep a gun out of my mouth as it is.
Right.
Now I've got this crippling hangover and whatever else I've done that night.
And audience members that want to buy you drinks afterward, like that was lesson number one. Oh, you don't let them buy you a drink because then you're theirs.
Yeah.
They sit there and
come over to our house, fuck my sister.
I mean, I'll sit there with the guy and have a goddamn whiskey and talk to him for 20 minutes, and then I'll be like, all right. And he's like, you want another one? No, I'm good. I'm going to go ahead. Oh, you're just going to take off. You're just going to take your drink and take off. No. I sat with you for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And talked more. And I was polite with you.
Yeah. We were all enjoying ourselves, but this is my job. This is not like a thing that I kind of show up and fuck around on the weekends.
Yeah. And it does feel better when you think about your life and you think, well, I got shithoused last night and then I didn't write a single joke today.
Yeah.
So I feel bad about that. I can make those bad feelings go away if I get shithoused again tonight.
Yeah.
You know, my level of guilt over my own career.
Cut to 10 years later.
Yeah, your liver is hanging out of your body.
You don't get booked. The staff hates you. Just because you've got a relationship with the manager, he puts you in every other year, and it can definitely take a weird turn. But what are your fans like? Is there a certain brand?
Sociopaths.
You get
no.
You have that American Psycho kind of attraction.
I think I attract people who are, say things like, "Oh, I really like offensive comedy." Like they say that, and then you go, well, I wasn't trying to be offensive per se, but I'm not going to talk you. I'm not going to talk you out of being my fan.
Offensive and funny. It's weird how those words are put together because offense, and I'm barely literate on a good day, but offense is like a negative.
Right.
Context.
Yeah.
And then funny. Offensive
is a positive. I've thought about that a lot lately, that people think they're mutually exclusive when really they're not. Sometimes it's both. Sometimes you have a joke that there are great reasons in column A for the joke to be offensive, and in column B there are reasons the joke is funny. But those exist simultaneously. They exist at the same time, and it just depends on your perspective.
It's a very yin-yang.
If you want to say, oh, it's about cannibalism, then it's about cannibalism. If you want to look at, oh, it's because the number 8 sounds like the past tense of to eat. Oh, 8 sounds like 8. That's why it's funny. Ha, 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 ha.
Yeah, it's weird. Again, people will draw lines in something that doesn't have a line. Mm-hmm. They'll section off certain things and stuff like that. But what are the best case scenarios? Like, where are some of your favorite places and cities to perform in, besides dealing with clowns in various places who have no perspective or have entitled to give their opinions?
Starting in San Francisco, I always thought the middle of the country. I mean, I was receiving word from other comics that the Midwest is hard because those people are drunk and they're dumb and whatever else, and they're stupid conservative ideologies. And I was like, I was a little wary to go to the middle of the country, but at the same time, I was like, well, I don't really have a problem with any of those things. So I'll go see what these people are like. And I went out, and what I found is that conservative mindset that exists in America is kind of when it comes to jokes, they kind of think, well, I'm not getting hurt in the joke.
Yes.
So why should I care if it's offensive to somebody else? Ha, 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 ha. And they just laugh. Whereas, in San Francisco, oh, well, I have to be offended because I can imagine a person who might be offended.
Yes.
And it's like, you're offended on behalf of your imaginary friend?
Yeah, I know,
you can't do that.
No, you can't. Imaginary friend. That's great. That's great. I think that's a good thing. Are you upset? No. I know somebody. Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Call him.
Who is it?
Well, I think Jim Jeffries has got a big thing. He's about being heckled or confronted about his doing something about disabled people. And then Jim more or less says, well, if you're such a good friend, why didn't you bring him out tonight?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And let them make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I always attack with a gentle, loving hand, whatever that might be, to people that are clearly disabled or minorities, I go straight for them.
Yeah.
Because it's so blatant that they get the irony of the whole thing, opposed to being offended and ignored. I think that's the most offensive thing to do, is ignore something.
Right.
I've been greeted and people come and sit in my wheelchair with me and get a pic. Can we get a picture? Yeah, I'll sit in your fucking lap. And get the snot off your face because I don't give a fuck.
There was this guy Art, and he's just this old guy in a wheelchair, can barely speak, and he was brought out to the club by his handler. Because that's offensive. Well, I mean, it literally was like a paid person who was there to just wheel Art around, and Art wanted to go to the comedy club, and
as Art should go to the comedy club.
Yeah, and Art is there, and Art has this. I mean, his laugh is distinct, and it doesn't sound normal, and he's
got respiratory problems. Yeah.
And people are like looking back to be like, what is that noise in the darkness? And I just walked off stage and walked over to him, and I was like, oh, look at you.
Did you during the show?
Jesus Christ.
You're a mess.
You're having a great time. You're a distraction. And so I start getting into it with Art, and I'm having a good time. Art is damn near crying with laughter.
Loving
but you can
it.
feel some people having a good time and some people wondering, like, is this okay? And I'm like, why wouldn't it be okay? I'm having a good time. Art's having a great fucking time.
Clearly, he is having he's urinated in his pants. He's laughing so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm getting pictures with Art afterward, and I'm like, oh, I'll remember Art forever.
Yeah.
Because he and I are having the show of our life right now.
And you still have the bite mark on your neck because he didn't know how to shake your hand.
Right. Well, that's how he signs. That's his signature.
The big purple bruise on your neck. Fucking retards love me. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, how long have you been doing stand-up now?
I started in 2001.
2001.
So in June, I think it'll be, 13 years.
Fantastic.
And then...
in San Francisco.
Yes.
And you've toured exclusively in the U.S. Is there any state that you haven't performed in yet? Or?
Oddly enough, a lot. It's weird to me that I look at where I've been and I think, oh, I would have never done stand-up in Hong Kong or Sydney or, I think of Johannesburg.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, I've been all over the world, but I still have never been to Tennessee. I've never performed in Montana.
It's very much becoming a global thing.
Yeah.
And you'll find probably over the next 3 or 4 or 5 years of your career, it's going to it's going to be a lot more broader.
Well, I think the comedians that actually have material that is based on more of a human experience rather than a cultural experience.
Yeah.
There are a lot of comics, especially in LA, that'll get up and talk about race. And I'm like, well, people have different racism in different parts of the world. So your bullshit about how black people and white people are, that really doesn't play in China because they don't have black and white people in China. It's mostly something else, dude.
And I think a lot of the race and stuff that's brought up in American stand-up is dated.
It's just regurgitated.
We're over it. But because it's familiar, people will laugh out of familiarity.
Yeah, they'll laugh almost out of this obligation of like, oh, I know this is funny, so I know I'm supposed to laugh. There was
it's like a mousetrap thing. Like when the thing goes around and hits this, hits that, and then you get that result.
Yeah, and they just know that's what's supposed to happen, and so they give it. There's somebody who's quite famous who put out a tweet of like, what did the tweet say? It said something to the effect of, marriage is the leading cause of divorce. And people retweeted it, and they loved it, and Comedy Central's retweeting it, and it's blowing up. And I looked at that, and I'm like, no, that's a Red Skelton joke from the Catskill Mountains. That joke has been around for 80 years. Word for word, that joke. That is his joke.
Yeah.
From almost a century ago.
Yeah.
And everyone in this era is thinking, oh, that's brilliant. Oh, that's such a funny, true thing. And it's like, yeah, it's so true, it's boring.
It's funny how there's this whole very well-rounded... information age with the internet, but people only look back 6 months.
Yeah.
They no. Anything previous to X year or whatever, that didn't really happen because it didn't happen on the internet in my experience on this planet. So there's it's not relevant. But it's how things have started. Those are pioneers, original shit.
And I don't think that people are educated enough about stand-up to understand what is or isn't original. And they kind of rely on this idea, well, I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
Well, what the hell do you know?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing right now that's separating stand-up from, other art. We talk about painting, we talk about poetry. People give those things like a respect, like, oh, I don't know a lot about it, so I'm not going to judge. Yeah. Versus stand-up, they're like, what is there to know? I know everything. I'm like, really? You couldn't even tell me the definition of joke if I asked you.
Yeah.
You can't give me any history of stand-up comedy. You can't tell me when it started. You can't name a comedian who hasn't been on television. And there are thousands. Yeah. And yet you're going to tell me that you know about stand-up. No, you are very aware of what you like.
Yeah.
And you only know that when it's put in front of your face.
And usually it's people that have shitty jobs and are generally unhappy with themselves as people.
Sure.
So they've taken this ground. But what else? We talk. This has been a consistent theme with a lot of it. It's this frustration out of this
with the crowd.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're not.
I'm of the opinion that stand-up can only move forward if the crowd becomes more educated. So I really try to take every opportunity to remind people, like, oh, stay open-minded when you're sitting in the audience.
Yeah.
Oh, you really don't know anything about this, so maybe you shouldn't judge it. Maybe you don't have the tools to go home and blog about this with any type of authority.
Yeah. Write 5 minutes, asshole, and come down here and open mic, and then we'll all sit around and poke at you.
Yeah.
Tell you how to do it.
Can you even name one element of a joke that we consider craftsmanship? We talk about the painting, and brush strokes are important. And when I say, okay, great, so what's a craft element of joke writing? And they go, I don't know.
No.
It's supposed to be funny.
Don't you just make it up? They think it's all improvised anyway.
Oh, they think that, and they think people steal each other's material. I'm like, you guys don't know anything, and yet we can't move forward without you. Because when you write a song, you can do it in the studio, and the song exists without the audience response. The poem exists without the audience response. The painting exists but a joke relies on laughter.
Yeah.
And we only know it's funny if there is laughter. But if the people laughing don't understand what they're laughing at, well, then it could be just garbage.
Yeah.
You're just responding to garbage.
It's silliness. More importantly, if you're stupid, stay out of the comedy clubs. It's for people who have got real jobs and lives and some have unconditional love for the art form. But where would people find you?
I hatetheaudience.com. No. It's RyanStout.com. I'm on Twitter at StoutRyan, YouTube /Ryan Stout. I always tell people, look, don't come to a show unless you've looked me up on the internet. Because how about that? Be a smart consumer. Maybe see what you're getting into.
That's a great point. When I go see a movie or go to a restaurant or anything, I'm going to see what's on the fucking menu.
Yeah.
I don't show up at McDonald's and go, what do you mean you don't got prime rib? This place fucking sucks.
Where's the lobster?
Ugh,
come on. So I tell people all the time, I'm like, I understand you're upset at the show and you're not getting what you wanted right now, but you had an opportunity to watch an hour of my material for free on the internet.
Yeah.
You could have purchased my album for $10 off of iTunes or Amazon or Google Play and listened to that and then come out and had a show, but you chose not to. You just chose to show up and hope that I did what you like.
You victimized yourself.
And I take that stance, and people really don't like that.
No, because the truth hurts.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on the show.
No, thank you. It's always fun.
It was a pleasure.
I like railing on the audience as much as you do.
Yeah, it is fun. It's fun. I think it's been getting picked on in high school now. I think that's how it's all come out.
Yeah.
But we'll look forward to performing together again soon.
Awesome.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Cheers.
Bye.
Don't kiss me on the mouth. Don't ask if you're hurting me. And if you hear the safe word, stop what you're doing immediately. Do you have pantyhose?